Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Great. Oh no, I've lost
Hi.
now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. I put you all back on mute just for this part of the conversation. And you'll be able to, we'll unmute you during the discussion later on. But thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Orit Gat, and I'm curator of talks and events at the Photographers Gallery. We're delighted to be here tonight with artist Maxime Matthys. Maxime works across photography, performance, video, and installation. Tonight, we will look at his practice and examine themes like surveillance, facial recognition, and our relationship to technology. Maxime will be in conversation this evening with Orit Gat. Orit is a writer whose work has been featured in Freeze, Art Review, and eFlex Journal. She's currently working on a book that looks at football in relation to immigration and ideas around belonging and love. After their discussion, we will move to questions and comments from you. The event should last roughly 1 hour. Please note we are recording this, so if you do not wish to be featured, please turn off your camera. There will be time after Maxime or its discussion for you to comment or ask questions using either the chat feature here or the Zoom function that allows you to raise your hand electronically, and we will unmute you so that you can speak. We are approaching this event in the same way that we do all of our public programs, which is with the aim of creating a forum of trust and mutual respect, so please keep that in mind. I hope today's discussion inspires you, and we look forward to seeing you again here during some of our other planned online activity, and even more hopefully in person again at the gallery. Just a note, we will be opening again next week, so please keep checking our website for more updates on that and for more information on forthcoming program. And now to Maxime and Orit. Thank you.
Thanks, Louisa. So I am going to start by saying that we're mainly going to speak about the work that has been featured through the Photographers Gallery as part of the Touchstone program. So we'll start with that work because it is so rich and there is so much going on there that I think it will spark a conversation. And please, if you have questions during the talk, ask them in the chat. I'm going to try and pay attention to the chat, but if not, then hold off for the Q&A session. But we're going to start by me asking Maxime, we're going to talk mainly about this new work, 2091, the Ministry of Privacy, a work that you completed in China last year. And maybe start by describing it in your own words so that I don't describe it for you.
Yeah, so hi everyone, thank you for connecting and following the talk. This project is quite complicated to explain, but in a few words, it's work I've done in March 2019 in Xinjiang, which is a region of China on the extreme west. And the work is focusing on how the Chinese government is using technology, and more precisely facial recognition technologies, to monitor and oppress ethnic minorities as Uyghurs and Kazakhs. So in a few words, that's the aim of the project.
Can you maybe explain the work technically and explain, it has this very specific look in which you see the way people's faces are read by facial recognition. And I feel like you built a program for it and an algorithm. So can you tell us a little more about what goes into making a work like this technically, and maybe show us an image of it?
Yeah, I will share my screen right now. Just wait a little minute.
I will really miss the boat background though.
Yeah, you're gonna see it soon. All right. So that's the first image of the project. So basically, it's a bit long to explain, but I think it's very important because it's showing the difference between a very straightforward documentary photography and a more artistic or different approach. So actually, I wanted to go to this place, which is Kashgar, a small city in the middle of Xinjiang, in China. I wanted to go there first because, as everyone, I've read and heard of what is happening in terms of how to say that, droits de l'homme, human rights. I was deeply shocked that in 2019 we find ourselves back in very shadowish times, because what is happening there, it's truly a kind of ethnic and cultural genocide. So I wanted to go there first to talk about that, and also because a big part of my work is focusing on technology. I was even more interested to explore how technology is used in operation system, and like an operation tool, actually. So I knew I would be taking pictures of surveillance cameras, CCTV, every surveillance equipment, but I didn't know I would have so many problems working over there and facing like very strong oppression by the police. So what I did was, for 2 days, I tried to photograph cops and surveillance cameras, because they are everywhere. I know London, for example, is a very, very monitored city, but over there, it's crazy. You can't even imagine it. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but there is one camera every 5 meters, everywhere on the city, everywhere on the street. To give a very precise example, in a taxi, you have 3 cameras, one for the driver, one for the road, and one for the passengers. And everything is monitored like this everywhere, all the time. So it's crazy, because it's really Orwellian, and it's really the end of any hope of privacy. So I tried first to photograph the camera, right after I got arrested by the police, because it's a very, very sensitive area. So journalists are not allowed to go there. Artists neither. Tourists are kind of accepted, but they have to stay in a very precise place. So when they saw me taking that many pictures of surveillance cameras, they stopped me once, the first day, to say it was not possible to keep doing that. And I couldn't, I couldn't keep photographing cameras and every surveillance equipment. So I had to find another solution to try to talk about surveillance without being able to picture it, to document it, and to show it in a traditional documentary way. And so the second day of my stay, I've shot these photographs, and that's, I don't know why, but the moment I told myself that would be amazing if we could see on the same pictures what is happening inside of a camera, and who are the people who are being oppressed and hurt by the surveillance system. So that's the time I realized that I had to use any kind of software to try to not only illustrate, but in a maybe more scientific way, to really show how it's working and how invasive and dangerous these technologies can be.
Were you telling the authorities that you were a tourist initially?
Yeah, actually, China is very, very, it's a wonderful country, I have to say. The government is a true nightmare, but the country is beautiful, and there is a lot of things you have to take care of, even if you want to visit as a tourist. So having like a journalist visa was impossible. Clearly, it was, you had to say like every hour where you would be, what you would be doing. So I just, before even going to China, I told myself I have to go there as a tourist. The little problem is I'm 2 meters high. People in this part of China is quite small. I'm blonde hair. I look like a true Hollandese tourist, you know. And so as soon as they saw me like landing on this small city, which is really, really not touristy at all, as soon as I landed, they started to look at what I would be doing. So I was not discreet a lot, and I was spotted as soon as I arrived.
How do these, I'm going to go back to the photographs themselves for a second. Yeah. What do they look like when they're printed? Because we keep seeing them only digitally as part of the Touchstone project as well. Like, how do you show this work? Because on a screen, it obviously has a very different relationship to those AI green squares that we've all seen before. But in real life, it must feel much haunting and different. Like, how big are they even?
The prints, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've done like one series of prints for an exhibition in Paris, in Centre Pompidou, and it was 60 by 80 centimeters, quite classical, and it is looking very great. You don't have that kind of screen aspect that is very sharp and technologic, but when you use the right printing method and stuff, it gets really sharp, and you really get the impression of being like inside the matrix, if I can say.
And can you tell us more about the title? Why is it called 2091?
Yeah, so it's a big reference to Orwell's book 1984 that he wrote in 1948, which is like clearly explaining and depicting a kind of dystopic future where everything was well, you have all read this book, so I don't have to say that, but it was clearly a relationship to it, because I've done this project in 2019, so I decided to switch as Orwell did. And for the title, I decided to create a new one, because if you remember, there are 3 ministries in Orwell's book that are doing exactly the opposite of what the title is. So Ministry of Love is like concentration camps. Ministry of Truth is like a propaganda area. So it's a true, it's not like copying, but it's a huge reference, yeah, to Orwell.
There's already a really interesting question in the chat, so I'm just going to
go for it.
So Ilya is asking if there are any other Chinese artists or activists that are doing similar work and commentating on these issues. And do you know their work? Has it affected yours or influenced yours? And like, do you know how differently you were treated to how they were treated?
So when I do, I have a documentary photographer background that I know just take advantage of to go deeper in my projects, but I kind of try to escape the cliche of the European photographer going in an extreme place to show how extreme it is there, and to go back and to show to European people. But what made me go there is that Chinese photographers and artists, and basically anyone who is not pro-Chinese government, who is like slightly against it, would have like huge problems. Lately, there is a good documentary video that has been made by Arte in France, and you see clearly that the reporters talk to a taxi to kind of find a camp in the area, and the next day he disappeared. You know, so it's really crazy how the Chinese government is oppressing and limiting any attempt to kind of tell what is happening there. And you know, on the places Tibet, it's the same. So I don't remember what was the question.
The question was about Chinese artists who are working on this directly, and like how differently they are treated, which you answered. And then I added to it asking if it's influenced you in any way. So like this Arte report, is that Arte report the thing that made you interested in this part of China initially?
I have a photographer's friend, but he's not Chinese at all. And I don't know, or I haven't met any Chinese photographer working on surveillance in this area. Maybe because it's extremely sensitive. Myself, I'm Belgian, so I'm European, and I had to make sure that the diplomatic relationships between Belgium and China were not too complicated. Otherwise, I would have problem on the territory. And I'm living like thousands of kilometers from there. So when you are Chinese and you have like the huge Chinese oppressive political system behind you, you can't really do what you want. The best proof is Ai Weiwei, right? It's a huge example, but there are a lot of small artists working on fascinating projects in China, but it's very difficult for them to try to show it publicly. So that's kind of what made me say, okay, you can go that far, you can kind of report and document what you see, because someone from the area could have done it very well, but it just couldn't have stayed alive or stayed in the surface.
Let's talk more about you as a European artist. And also now we've discovered that you're 2 meters tall and obviously like stick out there. And talk about the two performances that directly relate to the Ministry of Privacy work.
Yeah.
We did one performance called Jiu and the other one.
Yeah, very good.
It's my French accent when I'm saying words. And the other one called I Can See You Watching Me.
Yeah.
I want you to, I'm going to give you a lot of work here. Both describe the two of them and show them to us, like show us some images, while also telling us a bit about people's responses, like both people on the street and the Chinese authorities.
All right. Maybe I should just explain a little bit more what happened in this place where I was doing the Ministry of Privacy project, because that's really what triggered my 2 other performances I did in China. So as I told you, I got arrested the first day, but then I got arrested 7 times in 7 days. I stayed only 7 days, and I got, how do we say that, throughout the region. Deported, kind of, because they were like sick of me. They couldn't see me anymore, but they kind of really oppressed me, not as if I was a Uyghur, but I got like followed by 5 to 6 undercover cops all day, all night, everywhere I was going. They were sleeping in the same hotel as mine, and the room right next to me. They were like waking me up at 1 in the morning to ask me a few questions. So they were really a kind of, I got really into the feelings of what these people are like experiencing every day. So I had like a lot of trouble and kind of anger against the government. So the last day, I'm gonna show you Zio. Check. So the last day I was simply, they told me, you can't do any other, you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I don't see you anymore, but that's fine. They really told me you can't do any more pictures, otherwise you're gonna have like big problems. And I was really trusting them, because they had spent the week creating a nightmare for me. So I was a bit afraid, and they said, if we see you again with the camera, you're just gonna go back to France and stuff. So I was like stuck, because I wanted to keep documenting what was happening in the region. And also, as we are talking about performance, I wanted to show how what I'm experiencing in 1 week is kind of what these people will experiment all their life. So while I was still followed by 5 to 6 cops the last day, I couldn't take any picture. And I wanted to talk about the fact that I was followed by 5 to 6 people continuously everywhere I was going, which is like a very strange sensation, and very scary also. So I had to find a way to do something without being able to take any photo, without being able to make a selfie. I wanted to do a selfie series with like government cops in the background. Impossible. So I find the idea to kind of copy the hype that was at the time, to show what you are doing while you are running in a city, like you're trying to draw, I don't know, a dolphin or something while you are running. And there was really a hype of it in big cities, in Paris and stuff. People were like running the city and keeping their GPS track to show what they would have done. So I was like, I have 5 to 6 cops following me. I will try to make them write something, or to make them part of the project while following me. So I don't speak Chinese at all, and I wanted to translate the word Zio, which is the name of the project, which means freedom in Chinese, which is like this. I wanted to write this word in the streets of Kashgar, which is like the last, really a terrible place for what is happening. I wanted to write it with my foot, with my GPS track, while there were the cops following me. So I would make the government and the cops write the words freedom, which is like exactly the opposite of what's happening there. So this is Kashgar, this is the city. I was like, the hotel is deep in the center, so I spent like half of a day finding a place where I could easily cross parallel streets to try to make the Chinese symbol, and then I just made it with the cops following me for a good time. So you can see on the left that's the first symbol, and then that's the other. And then I got arrested the last time because it never ends, and I couldn't finish the project and the symbol. And that was actually the last time I was arrested by the government, and the time they told me I was deported and I had to leave the next day. So that's the first work.
I want to talk a bit about like your sense of responsibility toward this community, because, you know, you talk about Orwell, and arguably we are all living in Orwell's world right now. So some would say that it's easier to see that about another country, though China is like a very extreme example. But is there a lesson for people who are viewing your work in the West that goes beyond the documentary, like a lesson about why they should care about their privacy as well?
While doing these projects, I was keeping the same kind of mindset of showing how terrible it is over there, and actually China is the leader in surveillance and facial recognition technologies and stuff. So we will not yet go to this extreme. Another very important point is in Western countries and European countries, our privacy, our data, our kind of freedom is of course not respected, but it's used for mostly making money or to use big data for ads and stuff. We are not like in danger because we are watched for no. In China and in this region is the extreme opposite. It's really technology used to accelerate and to benefit to real cultural genocide. So people often ask me like, oh, it is going to be the same in Europe in a few years and stuff. Maybe we will have facial recognition, but it will be way less violent than what is happening in this part of China.
That's true. I mean, again, China, very extreme example.
Yeah.
But the awareness of these technologies, the awareness of facial recognition, like when we were speaking, we used the example of London and how every person living in London will be photographed 300 times a day.
Yeah.
Yes, there are a lot of data protection laws in Europe. I mean, coming from the States, it's a very different experience. And like, I keep a VPN on my computer just for like when I Google immigration issues in the States, because I don't really want the American government to know just how much research I have done into staying in America. Things like that, because I do know that this information is kept somewhere. But like the thing is, I want to talk a little more abstractly about using these examples in order to learn something about, there is a discourse that's happening right now around specifically for facial recognition technology, but all network technology and privacy. And like, what would you answer someone who told you like, well, that's China and we're France, and like, why should I care about my digital privacy?
Yeah, that's another good question. I mean, by showing the extreme, you can easily connect to what you are experiencing and what will the future be if we don't react. Personally, I'm against facial recognition and all the other technologies that are like supposed to make cities safer and stuff. I'm against it, but I think it's impossible to compare the both, because of course we see here an example of what the extreme of the extreme will become, but I think it's almost disrespectful for what are these people experiencing in their daily life to try to compare and to make links, you know. of course, when you see on the other projects, when you see that kind of stuff, it's really frightening. You really easily get the message, but it's really not. It's really not a way to say how facial recognition is dangerous. It's just saying, look at what this government is doing to these people using this technology. You know, if I wanted to talk about what would happen in Europe and stuff, I would do the project in Europe, finding new ways or other ways and other tools to say it. But here it's almost it's really engaged, like not as activists would do, but it's denouncing. Can you say that?
Yeah, denouncing.
Denouncing. Yeah.
In which case, let's talk about it being visual matter and like what is the role of an artist? Like what is the special contribution that an artist can make? I have thought about this a lot. Like I look at a lot of digital art, and I think that like so much of the conversation about facial recognition technology, about network technology in general, is about how invisible power systems are. And that like one of like art's roles is to make this invisible visible and draw attention to it. But you also have this very performative practice, which both brings in everyone that you meet and really like kind of brings yourself into it. And how did other people experience that? Because I assume that most people that you're photographing, you couldn't really communicate with.
No, not in this. There are a lot of questions in this sentence, but it's funny because what you are saying, like artists have to transform the invisible invisible. As I said before, I had a very documentary and photojournalistic approach, and I was constantly choosing projects and issues that were not visible. I focused on police violence, on smog, air pollution, everything you can't see, and no facial recognition technology. So there was one point I realized that photography for me wasn't the only medium and the only tool I could use to tell about something, to tell a story, to tell a message. So that's the first part of your question. The second part is, of course, these people, they mostly they don't care about me. They didn't say like anything, because if they get to talk to a stranger, they immediately get arrested by the police. It's the same system because they are being constantly watched. So a lot of people are asking me, did you ask them if you could photograph them? Because it's a very, I believe it's street photography is a very violent approach. It's very straightforward, and these people have already enough violence in their life. So what I answer to that is that I couldn't talk to them because that was what would really put them in danger. And the other thing is that I knew that this mask and this biometric information and facial recognition have a double purpose. The first one is, of course, showing how it works, but it has also anonymizing function, because facial recognition, it's only usable when you have the database that connects the red points to an identity. On a photograph, you don't have a database because you are not the Chinese government. So it's just like red points on a face. And really, when you see the pictures without the biometric informations, it's not the same people. You can really see who they are. With this technology, especially on this one, it kind of covers the faces. And then there is a kind of dichotomy between that is really, really going into the intimacy and the identity, and at the same time it is kind of masking it and showing off.
I mean, it's also interesting because your device is the same device that is directed at them, right? It's a CCTV camera, it's a camera, there's no abstracting it. So like one of the participants, Ilya, asked like to explain the lines between the faces, but actually it's about like making that connection between the CCTV camera and the camera. It's about displaying this technology, right?
Yeah, so that's a funny story. It's good that he or she is asking because so there are two technologies basically. There are this one, which is the basic one we all know. It's taking kind of interest points on the faces, so you can see the nose, the eyes, the mouth, and stuff. And everyone has a different biometric facial print. It's like the footprints. We all have a unique one. So that's the more like old school archaic technology. Now they have developed this one, which is like what they did 1 year ago, and it's probably already vacant and they have something else, but it's simply connecting the dots between them and doing a mask. So it's nothing really technologic, but I didn't explain it, but I worked with a French engineer, a student in artificial intelligence, to build this program on my laptop. And we realized that when we uploaded the pictures on the program, there were that kind of stripes connecting the faces between each other, which is not what is happening inside. I mean, the camera is not like drawing stripes. So it's kind of a program bug, an informatic problem, but we decided to keep it because it is showing what you're explaining. It is showing that these technologies, they know who you are, what you are doing, but they also know what you are doing with which people who are your family. So they are connecting people between each other. And in the case of Xinjiang, there were a lot of studies and kind of studies showing that they are doing what they call a Muslim tracker. So they have a bit like in Black Mirror. They make a level of Islam, what they call radicalization for each people. And when, for example, the woman on the left is talking with the woman on the right, the cameras see it, save it, and then if there is one that is more Muslim than the other gets more watched by the government. So we decided to keep it because it's showing the interconnectivity between the people.
The comments are actually like really beautiful on the Zoom, like thanks guys. But Donna is also tying it a bit to COVID-19 tracking right now, which is obviously a very, very different technology that is being used. But in a way, it is a way for people in the West to really understand what it means for every move of yours to be traced and tracked. It's framed very positively around COVID, but like, I mean, it's not surprising that a lot of the trace and track applications are developed by militaries, for example.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about your recent work from the lockdown, partly as a way of talking about technology itself. So you had a work that went pretty crazy viral that you made while Paris was on lockdown. Can you show it to us?
Yeah, I will close the other one, otherwise I will keep talking about Uyghurs and China and how I hate
Oh, I mean,
so.
we will. I'm planning on tying it all together very neatly.
Yeah, but I have to close it, otherwise I will stuck on it. So yeah, that's a performance I've done not in Paris, in Rennes, in a small city in 2 hours on the west of Paris during the French lockdown. That's me under 150 pieces of paper, and it's more straightforward than my other project. It's like more, it's kind of provoking and at the same time making people think and ask themselves what is really a lockdown, why we end using this technique, the lockdown, which is like a technique used in Middle Age for the past epidemic illnesses like pest and stuff like that. So it was crazy to me that we saw ourselves back like like back in the Middle Age. You know, in France we have a lot of bureaucracy. You know, it's very well known for the huge amount of bureaucracy. So during a precise time of the lockdown, as soon as we wanted to go out, because we had to breathe and to buy things to eat and stuff, we had to fill a piece of paper saying why we are going out. There were like 5 options, I remember. And we had to keep it with us everywhere we were going, and we could like go out for only 30 minutes. And it was driving me crazy, because it is a kind of surveillance, because you get arrested by cops. They check your whole piece of paper, like looking, oh, you left at this time, now at this time you will get into trouble. So it's a kind of surveillance, but it is a really archaic system using pieces of paper, and we are 60 millions in France. So there is a moment people were like printing 60 millions of pieces of papers, not every day, but as soon as they were using that attestation. I don't know how to say it in English. So yeah, I create this costume, and I put it on the streets, and I just walked for my, like, I don't remember. I think we had 1 hour a day we could use to walk around our place without like going too far away. And so I used this hour to walk in the center of the city to kind of try to see how people would react and what they would think of it and stuff.
So part of what I want to talk about is like having a sense of an audience. How did people react, and then how did people online react once it went viral?
Yeah, it was crazy, because on the streets, people were really positively reacting. So they were like saying, what the fuck is this thing? Again, I'm 2 meters high, so you can guess what is this looking when I'm like walking the streets. And at the same time, it was a very difficult time for everyone. So any kind of event that would be other than going to eat and going to sleep was like really accepted by the people on the street. So I crossed like 20 to 30 maybe people in 1 hour, were like watching, filming, asking me. We kept our distance and stuff, because at the time it was not like in the habits of everyone to speak from a long distance. So they kept asking me, and yeah, just wondering what was this about, because it's been really traumatizing for French people to fill this piece of paper. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks of the lockdown. We had to use it. So as soon as you see the costume, you go a little bit closer, you really see that it is the piece of paper everyone is using. So people were immediately understanding what it was about, and at the same time wondering why a guy is like walking in the street with 150 attestation while you need only 1. So that was the reaction in the streets.
And then what happens when it changes context and goes viral online?
Yeah, so it's very strange, because I decided, I asked my girlfriend to film, because I wanted to keep a trace of it, and really to keep like an archive of this project. And also I thought that it would be a very, as it is really provocating, I was thinking it could go like not viral, but people would certainly react on social medias. Even my friends, would react. So I was like really keen on trying to show it to other people. So we uploaded it. I don't remember the precise time, but nothing really crazy happened for 2 weeks. So they were like, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 views maybe. Of people watching it. And then 2 weeks later, I got interviewed by a very small local radio, who just asked me what was this about, and then published me on the website. And then I don't know what happens. When it goes viral, you don't know what's happening. It got like crazy. In 6 days, it went from 2,000 views on my account to I think 800,000. So it was crazy, and the more people were watching it, the more medias were like calling me to do interviews and stuff. And so at the end, I got more than 80 interviews and articles in local, national press, and also some international press, like in Poland, in Italy, nothing in UK, I think, in Switzerland, in Benin, a country from Africa. It went like completely crazy because I don't know, people were spending a lot of time on the laptop, so they were like connected, and I don't know what happened, but it got crazy. Yeah.
But people liked it and appreciate. It's like this really fascinating difference between these two bodies of work, where like you are living in the most controlled environment that there is, and you get to like make a statement about it and kind of like be humorful about it. Whereas in the work that you were making in China, obviously like drawing that much attention would get you in jail.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested, as someone who like works a lot with technology and like sees how these things get distributed, is it kind of annoying that the like joyful, humorful work is the one that gets like really distributed, and that the work that's like political and intense?
There is a good expression in French, but I don't know how to translate it, so I won't say it, but it's saying that when there is terrible things happening far away, you don't care because it's far from your place, but what is happening in your city, in your country gets really important, you know? And that's the rule, that's how a society is working or collapsing, I don't know for now, but you can't do anything about it. So of course I would have loved that my other projects worked as much as this one worked, or maybe better, I don't know, but I just take things how they come, and yeah, it's a pleasure, you know, to get that much watched and seen by people that wouldn't have seen a performance maybe in their life. I wrote a little text about it, saying that in a pandemic time, when most of the world is under lockdown, where every art place and galleries and museum and any place like showing art and culture is closed, it's crazy to have my performance getting to touch that many people, you know. It's crazy because usually performance, for example, are the less watched pieces of art, because it's always at the opening, you don't know what it's happening, and then it stops. Now this work just made the opposite in a time when every institution was closed. So it's with a little bit of reflection what is really interesting to me with this project also.
I'm going, so we're almost running out of time, but I'm going to ask you one last question and then we'll open it to the audience. But this idea that like things that happen elsewhere are not as urgent as things that happen in your own city. I want you to tell us a bit about what you're working on now, because you're working on ideas of environmental, like these, like the thing that Timothy Morton calls a hyperobject, like something that's too big that you cannot see, which also relates to so much of what we talked about, but also like the things that happen, you know, far away from you affect you directly. I mean, you're also talking to us from a boat, so like you have to tell us why.
Yeah, of course. The boat will come later, but you know, I think everyone during the lockdown has kind of had big reflections on their life, on what were the things that made them happy. In our case, artists, we basically spend our days and our lives wondering if our work is good and stuff. But I don't know, during the lockdown, I had a kind of very strong feeling that I've been always really fascinated by nature, ecology, really touched by the environmental crisis, but I have never connected it to my arts practice. I don't know why, but that's something I figured out during the lockdown. And so I started to, now you're asking, I'm starting to do more I don't know, environmental-based projects, still focusing on technology and especially on how technology can be damaging for the environment. But yeah, I now I focus more on this type of projects, and maybe to make a transition, I can show you the first work I've done after, I don't know if you saw it, after the lockdown, which is called Nature Lockdown. And it's actually really simple. We keep it like for 5 minutes. So what was terrifying for me is that during the lockdown, plastic was again the king of everything. You know, everyone was afraid of getting the corona, touching stuff. So everyone was like, okay, plastic free, let's go. We have to go like crazy. Like in grocery shops, people were like placing plastic everywhere and, next to the cash machines and stuff. So I've done this performance that I called Nature Lockdown, which is like very strongly recommending to people that know after being ourselves in lockdown, what we should do is really care about nature. So I used plastic film to kind of put a parcel of nature under lockdown, protected from any kind of outside viruses, but mostly human viruses, you know, not natural ones. So any pollution, any dangerous stuff, so nature. So again, it's a kind of provoking, but you can see in this work that it is slowly getting deeper into a more environmental-based art.
And also, again, that like making the invisible visible, and like, you know, I feel like I've noticed that thing about plastic too, and it's been breaking my heart. But I didn't have like an image to share with people. All I could talk about was like gloves on the floor, and like having like artwork could actually allow people to like talk through these things and like come together. Like that is, oh God, I'm gonna end this on like such an optimistic note. Like that's part of the job, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is not only a performance, because I think that was a test, to be honest, because it's a simple plastic, but the next ones I will be doing will be like biodegradable plastic, of course. And I really see it as a mix between a sculpture and an installation, you know. And I let it like for 2 or 3 weeks in the forest to let people like watch it, and yeah, you know, you really see it from far away.
Yeah, I mean, it's also very reminiscent of Christo, so I could like go back to the history of art.
But I did it before he died, so it was maybe a sign. I don't know.
Maybe you killed him.
No, I hope no.
Now I'm done like being an optimistic ant. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm kidding. Save me, please, people. Ask questions. There are so many questions in the chat already, but I assume you people do not want me to read your questions out loud when you can be in conversation with the artist.
Maybe I will close my screen.
If you unmute if you put your hand up, I can unmute you. Okay, I see you, Donna. Okay, I'll put it to Donna first, and then Gavin, and then the other Janice, not Janice McLaren. Donna, if you could unmute yourself. All right, one more time, please. You're still on mute.
Okay, sorry. Power of mute, unmute. So in relation to your current venture, you said you're on board a ship, yacht? Yep. So this is presumably your, in terms of environmental, we've seen so many images in the last 48 hours of collections of, like on Facebook, people collecting masks and gloves and you know, the ocean. I mean, I lecture in sustainability in relation to fashion. So for me, that's been like a big, you know, this whole, I was like very hopeful in the sort of lockdown that we might move forward. And obviously the discussion of sustainability has been put to the fore in terms of discussions in a global sense in most production, but we've just seen, we've kind of had this dichotomy, and I just wondered how you're, you know, a little bit more about where you're moving forward. You said about the biodegradable, and and plastics, but it has been such a shift between those two areas of trying to move away from something and then being thrust into it, and that's just really interesting in relation to our, you know, our better understanding of nature. The fact that birdseed in Britain has, you know, almost sold out because people reconnected with nature so much in lockdown that birdseed almost was unavailable. I thought that was great.
Yeah. I think the fact that everyone was locked into a small place, into small flats and apartments and stuff, they really maybe realized that that was not what human beings are made of. They have to stay connected to nature for just for their mental health. So I think that really affected me as everyone. But before that, I was already really focusing on nature. My grandfather knows a lot on birds, so I know a bit on birds, on trees. Not a lot, but it has always stayed in the background of my life, not my artist life. But no, I just realized that that would be really interesting to work on both, you know.
Okay.
And so the sailboat, maybe that was your question.
Yeah, the boat. Yes.
Yeah, that's a 13 meters long goélette. It's like a boat with two masts, and that's a boat from two friends who are launching an association that is doing a tour of Brittany in France to focus on the relationship between ocean and human. So they invite artists in residence and stuff. It's called Sailing Hirondelle, which is the name of a bird in French, hirondelle.
Sparrow.
I'm mainly here to help because I'm also a sail instructor in my other life, but right now I'm like thinking of projects I would be doing with the ocean and stuff, but I don't have a precise idea yet.
Okay, so you're exploring.
By sail.
But your early images also have that, you know, your China images also kind of created those communities and those little, the way those lines connected were not just about us, they kind of they made like community things. I thought it was really interesting in the way that the Kling film does, you know, it has a similar look. Is that part of the idea?
No, I didn't think about it. Really, you're the first one saying it to me, but maybe.
Yeah.
It's the same aesthetic, you're right. I didn't really realize it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. I believe there's a question from Gavin Tudball. And then I'll get to you, Janice.
No, I haven't got a question. No, not yet, anyway.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
Janice?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, so thank you very much for your talk on your work. And I think it's very interesting to see how you look into surveillance and also environment, which I think is two very important issues at the moment. But I think my question is, say on surveillance, there's a kind of like you have a trade-off between privacy and safety, and on environment, you have a trade-off between like sustainability and economic growth. So what's your standpoint on this? And are you trying to like kind of expand your ideas to other people through your artworks?
That's a question requiring some politic and some socio-economical question. In my opinion, the whole capitalistic system is entirely wrong. It's like really bringing nothing great for for the planet, neither for the people. So really simply, the first thing to do is to forget about economical growth, which is like a big lie, and it's like just making people rush for work and rush for consummation, and it makes the planet die slowly. So my thought on it is like just we have to find another system in a mondial way, not only in countries but in the whole earth, to find other ways of functioning and saving nature.
Can I add to this a bit?
Yeah.
It's like there's this very famous idea in the history of technology in Marshall McLuhan's essay about hot and cold media. And Marshall McLuhan quotes, he tries to explain that like, technology is not a binary. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It is not a good or a bad thing to have a CCTV camera. It does say something about your relationship to the government. So like McLuhan's example is like an apple pie is not a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on who is eating it, who is serving it. So like this idea that like everything is binary and is either safety or surveillance stops people from fighting for a more just society in which human rights are at the forefront and technology serves those, versus then all of us just accepting, because this technology exists, accepting the fact that it is used against us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You have another question, Janice?
No, not for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janice. There's some interesting comments in the chat room. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them, Maxime.
Not yet, no. Okay, there is a lot of stuff here. Okay, I don't know them very well for someone focusing on privacy and stuff, but I will like catch up. Yeah.
There was a comment about how your work is viewed by Chinese citizens, thinking about the specificity of that cultural context. There's some lovely observations about comparing it to stitching and weaving. I think it's quite nice. Is there something that you want to say about creating connectivity between you and groups and people that you work with in future?
What did you say? I didn't understand very well.
There's a comment from Donna about creating a connectivity between you and groups. So perhaps thinking about—
I kind of commented on that. That was more like the images were making a connection between, that's what the thing I was talking about. That was ages ago in the talk.
I mean, it was really beautiful because after that, Ilya responded being like, it's like stitching or embroidery. It was a very beautiful moment in the chat. Someone in the chat, Ilya, again, I feel like she should talk herself because she asked a lot of really good questions in the chat too. But she was asking about your girlfriend taking the photos and like, what is her position? Like, it was also very practical. Like, if she used a tripod. She also asked if these are images from the public, and I'm wondering if you used any images from the public, if there's like a diversity of views of that performance.
You mean the public in the streets?
Mm-hmm.
I can show you. The video is super quick. It's the one that really went viral on social media. So that's me going down the stairs.
Can you share your screen?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have a better up. That's it. You see it?
Yeah.
Great. So you can see it's really not well filmed. It's very poor video quality. It's like recorded with a smartphone. But at the first time, as I said, it was really just a way to keep a track on it. And we figure out later that when you use that kind of filming technique, like very quick, very zoom, very not that good quality, it helps in the virality system. I realized. So yeah, there was a lot of people like loathing, wondering, and you really get a sense of first how tall I am, and second how like strange and impressive it can be in the streets.
I said hi, Ilya, because I saw her come on for a second, and I feel like surely you have something to build on that. I feel like the teacher now, like calling on a student.
No, but yeah, you've all the questions that I put up, you've brought out. But Maxime, I was really interested in how you say your work is changing, because I'm the same. And I'm just reading now about the donut economy. Is that something you've heard of in Belgium?
The donuts?
The donut economy. as
Okay.
an alternative to capitalism, where we stay within a band. I'm still reading about it, where
All right.
we make sure that everybody has enough to live on, so we don't
Mhm.
have extreme poverty, but we don't
Mhm.
go beyond what harms the environment.
All right. No, I didn't know it.
And maybe that's just something which is known about in England. It's quite a new idea from some Oxford academic.
It's
called
a
donut
donut,
economy. It might be worth having a look at that.
like what the thing you are eating, right?
Like a beignet.
Okay. Then yeah.
No,
Okay.
it's a model, and it's an
Yeah,
economist,
yeah.
and
Okay.
she's made it kind of like figurative, like a donut, because apparently people latch on to things when there's an object, a visual.
Okay, I will write it down. Thank you very much. That's the first time I'm enjoying a Zoom video stuff, actually. So thank you very much.
Really enjoyed your talk and your work.
Thanks.
It kind of builds on the ideas around the circular economy, but I'm a member of the Royal Society of the Arts. As a fellow, we've been discussing a lot around the donut economy and how we move
really?
forward out of COVID. So many of the discussions that we were having last week, which have been like this Zoom sort of discussion and then going into chat rooms, the Royal Society are really keen at the moment in terms of artists, designers, thinkers globally kind of coming together and thinking how that moves forward. It's been really inspiring as a
Great.
yeah. And you don't have to be a fellow to go into the talks. They're all
Okay,
available.
Okay. I will write it down also. Okay.
Yeah.
Royal Society, right?
Yeah, the Royal Society of Arts they're just on the Strand in London, but everything's virtual at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah. Okay, thank you. So, do we have some more questions, Louisa?
If there are no further comments or questions, I guess I'll say my thank you to everyone tonight. Thank you everyone for your brilliant comments and questions through the chat throughout the conversation and also towards the end. Thank you, Orit, for beautiful chairing and for really bringing in such a fresh perspective around surveillance, thinking about facial recognition technology and bringing it really into unexpected areas. Thank you, Maxime, for your lovely presentation and also for zooming in from a boat for stress.
Yeah, it's the first time, I guess.
We just want to mention that we are doing a slow looking event with featuring Maxime's work on Saturday, the 18th of July. So my colleague Janice has posted a link to the event on our chat room, but you can just keep checking our What's On page for more updates on future program. And if you have a moment this evening, if you wouldn't mind, we have a poll, and it would be really great if you could just give us your feedback so we get a better sense of what you want to see, how you're enjoying this platform. Unfortunately, it's not freeform, so it's really just like ticking things. So it's quite easy, but you can also write to our info address at info@tpg.org.uk if you have any ideas, comments, suggestions. But thank you for spending some time with us this evening, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you here or in person at the gallery. Be safe, everyone, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Max.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully you can see the poll. I hope it stops recording, but Orit, your question about maybe you killed him was hilarious.
Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I'm so sorry, Max.
I was on mute, but I was like laughing very, very hard.
That is so my sense of humor. I'm an awful person. I'm so sorry.